Welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another breakdown and analysis of the Quran of the Muslims. Yes, we will be looking at Allah's word in the words of Allah himself and breaking it down into factual, logical English statements that we can understand so that we can figure out who or what is Allah and what does he intend for you, me and everybody else of the non-believer apostate world. So, as I do every time before I start, I'm going to tell you, if you don't believe me or you have any doubts as to my factual accuracy, please feel free to buy one of these from any good bookshops or from Amazon, which is where I got mine. So, remember last time we got as far as Allah saying to you and me, in terms of threats, he was saying, anyone who doesn't believe this is evil and bad, and he has sent magical signs from the heavens that we will all see. And anyone who doesn't see these signs is bad and actually perverted and shall be killed horribly and tortured and then burned forever in hell. You and me included. So, carrying on from there, we get to verse 101 in the Quran, which is sentence 78 on my little summary. So, let's continue. These guys are without honour. Starts off well, doesn't it? These guys are without honour. They're always breaking their covenants and their deals. There is always one amongst their number who throws out Allah and his Quran as if they didn't believe it was true. I mean, come on, of course they believe it, really. They know it's true. They're just, messing with us. So what does Allah mean by this? Well, he starts off as he means to go on. These guys, those dummy or ape Jews that we hate and we're going to kill, and their Christian buddies, they're evil too. Those guys are without honour. They're always breaking their covenants and their deals. Now, why is Allah saying this to you, the reader? Well, he knows, now that he's told you, we're going to go and kill everybody else who isn't Muslim, and you have to help, or we're going to kill you too. Now he's said that, he wants to head off that guilt that most people are going to feel when they're instructed to go and murder complete strangers because they're different to you. Bearing in mind you didn't come up with this yourself, Muslims, Allah came up with it and enslaved you into his worship. Just in case you feel bad about this command to go and murder everybody else on earth, he's saying don't feel bad about it, guys. These guys are without honour. They're complete scumbags. They're always breaking their covenant and their deals. So what that means is, when they're trying to plead with you for their lives, please don't kill us, we meant you no harm, we're just getting on with our own lives on our own town, why are you killing us? When they say these things, they're actually lying, and the proof is they've broken all their deals and covenants in the past. Why wouldn't they just carry on breaking them? They're evil Jews and they're liars and they're apostate Christians. We should kill them all and it's going to be righteous, and if you don't believe me, you're not worshipping enough. That's what he means by that. There is always one amongst their number who throws out Allah and his Quran, as if they don't believe it, really. So he's reiterating here that even though they're doing really well over there in Israel and the Christian nations are now starting to build up and do well, actually they're only doing well because they're secretly worshipping Allah. That's the only reason they see any success. And even if they claim to be nice and polite and peaceful when you're living next to them, they're lying. And the reason that you know they're lying is because even though they claim on the surface to be nice, and all the ones you've met are nice and peaceful, there's always one among their number. There's always one who's going to command them and lead them in a war against you in future. That's what this is saying. Allah is saying, don't believe anything they say. They're obviously lying, and the reason that they're that dishonest and horrible is because they're not reading this and worshipping Allah. And even if they seem really nice, there's always going to be one in there who you don't like and who's going to lead them to being horrible and against Allah. So they all need to die. You're the guy to do it. That's what this means. 79. Oh, this gets... I'd forgotten about this bit. This gets extremely juicy, so bear with me here while I read this. They followed what the Satans decreed in Solomon's kingdom, but Solomon believed in Allah. But his people were evil hippies who don't believe in anything apart from evil magic from Harut and Marut's false teachings. They are evil. Now, who's Harut and Marut? We haven't heard about Harut and Marut in this so far, and it isn't actually described until much later. Also, who are the Satans? Like, that's really strong language to be calling someone the Satans. And also, we've already heard in the first couple of verses that Satan led Adam, Eve and Allah down from heaven when they were, kicked out to the surface. So, as far as we know, there's only one Satan. But now we're hearing there's Satans, plural. And these are the people of Solomon's kingdom. So Israel is the kingdom which Solomon is the king of. So that means the Satans actually means the Jews, those scabby, evil ape Israelites. They are the Satans now. So we're still talking to our Muslims and we're deriding the Israelis in their kingdom because they seem to be doing pretty well and we're not doing so well. We've been in sharp decline and we're having to go at them to make ourselves feel better. They followed what the Satans decreed in Solomon's kingdom. So the whole kingdom has grown into a big, great walled city with military power, wealth, technology. Everything's going great over there. They've even got this wise and powerful king who's got a great reputation, King Solomon. But even though Solomon decreed that they should do Allah stuff, is what Allah says in here. Even though he decreed that, they're actually not. They're now hippies who don't believe in any of the good stuff. They're new age hippies that do stuff like yoga and flipping cup reading and tarot cards and stuff, you know, magical marbles. They're doing all this evil stuff. And the way they learn all that evil stuff is through Harut and Marut. Now, Harut and Marut, you'll know if you do some Googling, like I did, in order to tell you this, because it isn't in here. Harut and Marut are two rebellious demons, they're jinn, that rebelled against Allah and got thrown out of his kingdom, and now they're opposed to Allah. So Harut and Marut are evil demons, and they're evil demons because they know magic, and they're teaching this to the evil Satans, the Jews, and they're against Allah, right? So Allah don't like these guys. But his people were evil hippies who don't believe in any of that Allah stuff. All they believe in is Harut and Marut's false teachings of magic and evil, and they're teaching this to the evil Satans. So why is he saying this? Well, even though King Solomon is highly respected and is a king, so he can't say he's an evil Jew because he's actually a king. So Allah makes all the kings. That's what he said earlier. Everything's created and destroyed through Allah. He knows everything. Everyone who gets put in a position of power is only there because they do Quran stuff and Allah put them there, remember? So the fact that King Solomon is a king at all, and he's got this great and powerful luxury wealthy kingdom with a big wall around it, a big military, technology, loads of money, loads of food, huge population, and they're doing pretty well. We need Allah to be the reason, otherwise his earlier words don't make sense. That is why he's saying this. Allah is taking the credit for King Solomon, even though he is the king of their enemy opposed nation of Israel. Even so, Allah is controlling him and he's worshipping Allah, is what we're supposed to think, according to Allah. And all of his people, even though they've collaborated and done so well as to make this huge kingdom in the middle of the desert, where there's nothing apart from sand and tremendously hot days and then freezing cold nights, even so they've made this huge powerful kingdom, loads of money, wealth, military, big wall. But how they've done this is not through King Solomon's wisdom, which is only there because of Allah. No, they have done this through Allah's angels, Harut and Marut, and their magical yoga and their hippie stuff, which they're teaching to the Satans, the Jews. Let's carry on. Even so, Allah controls these two devils. So all the magics that the evil Jews of Babylon learnt through them will only bring them destruction because it's all in Allah's plan. Allah knows. So, let's break that down. Even so, Allah controls these two devils. So the reason Allah is saying that he controls Harut and Marut is because he can't have rebellious devils who can teach magic, you know, powerful beings. He can't have them running around helping his enemies because then he would not be all-knowing. You get me? He said earlier he knows everything, everything's his plan. Allah knows, that's what he keeps saying. But even though Allah knows and he mind controls his enemies, these two jinn, these demons, have learnt his magical secrets and they're now teaching those to the enemy Jews successfully, and they've rose up in the desert with this huge powerful kingdom and they got this King Solomon. So Allah is saying, even though that's happening, Harut and Marut are mind controlled. Woo! They're mind controlled by Allah, and that's why they're doing this stuff to the Jews. And even though it looks like they're doing really well and they've got this huge powerful kingdom, loads of money and a big wall and a big military and they're doing flipping fantastic, Allah knows he sent those demons over there to teach them all that stuff on purpose, and he's only letting them get this big kingdom with huge stores of gold and food on the go so we can go in later and cut off all their heads and take all their stuff. It's all in Allah's plan, you see. That's what he's saying here. The Jews ignored Allah, but listened to his two demons. Oh, those dummy Jews just don't understand. And he caps off the verse by saying, look, I know they're ignoring Allah and they seem to be doing really well, But Allah has controlled those demons to teach them all that stuff, so it's Allah's fault they're doing really well, and they don't get it. He's only doing that to torture them and humiliate them, and then build up stores so we can go and kill them and take all their stuff later. You see, he's too smart for these guys. 007 Secret Agent Allah has done all this. That's what this means. 80. See, if they'd just worshipped Allah in the first place and stuck with the Egyptians and ignored their false idol worship, they'd have been even more powerful and wise and wealthy, and they wouldn't have to die in future. So what he's saying here, this is one of the most ridiculous parts of this entire book, and that is a high accolade because there's plenty of ridiculous stuff in this particular book. See, if they'd have just worshipped Allah and stuck with Egypt as slaves, and if they hadn't gone across the thing with Moses and escaped and set up their Israel, if they hadn't done all that stuff, they'd be even more powerful and wealthy and wise than they are now. So what he's saying here is, even though they look like they're doing really well and they are powerful and wise and they're doing better than Egypt, if they'd have stayed in Egypt and been slaves, they would be doing better as slaves in Egypt under Allah than they seem to be doing now over there in their big, powerful luxury kingdom. That's what he's telling us here. If they had stayed as slaves, they'd be doing better than they are right now, according to Allah. Sound legit? Not very. Once again, I don't think this is true, but let's carry on. 81. Good Muslims, I say not to you evil Jews or pagans, but only to you good Muslims. So we're having a little group hug and a huddle with Team Allah. Now we're not speaking to the rest of these scabby unbelievers and the evil Satan Jews and the Christians. They're out the room. We're having a little secret team chat about what we're going to do with them. Good Muslims, I say, not to evil Jews, pagans, but only to you. Totally 100% ignore all these trickeries of the evil Satans and their friends the Christians. Ignore all that stuff. And only worship Allah and the Quran. Do your Quran worship. Because if you don't, most grievous will be the punishment for your faithlessness. So now Allah has capped off his little team chat without everyone else being in the room. You know, Team Allah's huddle. He's capped that off with a really bad threat towards his Muslims. Even though the Muslims are devout and they're worshipping him, they're doing everything that he's asked them to do. And they're failing as a kingdom. You know, Egypt was a huge, powerful kingdom with loads of money, as we described. And now they're in sharp decline. They've got no money, no slaves, no food. And they're pissed off about Israel doing really well over there in the desert. And they're hating life. Allah is making sure they know. Don't you dare think about rebellion. Don't you dare think about going over there and befriending those. Don't you dare stop worshipping me and reading my Quran, following all my commandments. If you do, and you listen to the negotiation and the logical fair debates that are coming out of these Christians and Jews over there, if you listen to them, because you've listened to them, most grievous will be the punishment for your faithlessness. Threat. But we know Allah likes to curse and threaten and lie. That's what he does. So let's carry on. Being eternally burnt and grave tortured and killed is never the wish of the dumb Jews and the hypocrite Christians or pagans. But Allah's going to do what he's going to do. Alright? There's nothing you can do about it. So punish them and you'll be rewarded as Muslims. Go against them and you will die. And the reason this is going to definitely happen is because Allah is all grace and wisdom and mercy. And he's the Lord of everyone. Even those guys. So what does this mean? Breaking it down. He starts off saying, obviously we're going to eternally burn and grave torture and kill these guys over there, and they're not going to like this. It's not their wish that that's going to happen, but they won't be able to do anything about it anyway, because they're going to be punished by Allah and they will die, and you're going to help them. But the reason this is going to happen, and it's not going to happen to you Muslims are going to be rewarded, is because Allah is the Lord of everything. So he's just putting a finer point on, guys, even though you're doing terribly poor and none of my promises to you have been kept, even though my promises that you will defeat those guys over there haven't been kept, and even though I said they were going to be tortured and they were going to die and they were going to be cursed and plagued, even though they're doing really well, don't be thinking about that. Listen to me, worship me, follow the Quran, and if you don't, you'll die. And the reason you'll be rewarded in the future if you do this, and they will die, is because me, Allah, knows everything. I'm all grace and mercy. I'm the Lord of all, even those guys. That's what this means. 83. Fair enough though, because we don't break our deals and covenants with Allah. Our rewards are always going to be equal or better than what they're getting currently. Do you morons not know that Allah controls everything, minds, bodies and souls? So what is he trying to say here, this Allah dude? So, following on from the last thing where he's making the threats to his Muslims about what happens to them if they don't follow his commands, despite what they can see happening and the fact that they're doing really crap, even though they've been following his commands and they've been worshipping him, and Israel were doing really well despite ignoring him and rebelling against him and having their own God. What he's saying is, it's fair enough that we go and kill them and we don't listen to them. The reason it's fair enough is because we don't break all our deals and covenants like those evil, greedy, stupid Jews. And he says break their covenants, plural, because what he's saying is they had a covenant with their God who doesn't exist and they broke that. That's when we slaved them. Then we offered them the covenant with Allah and they broke that. So they escaped and we couldn't kill them. And then they said some other stuff and they broke their deals and with Moses and stuff. You know, remember they're chaotic and they're killing each other and Moses is a liar. We're throwing shade on him according to Allah. That's what they're like. So don't believe anything they say, because Allah only rewards Muslims and what he's going to give you is equal or better to what they're getting now. So keep worshipping. Don't worry about them doing better than you now. It's all part of the plan. That's what Allah's saying. I love this next bit. Then he compounds the previous two verses in 84. Don't you morons get it yet? Allah owns all things, earth, heaven, bodies, minds and souls. He knows everything, he does everything. And if you refuse his worship and doing the Quran stuff all the time, if you refuse that, you personally will end up totally isolated, penniless, with nothing and no one. That's expressly in the language there. So what Allah is saying there, don't you morons get it? Even though he's been telling his Muslims in this little team chat, group Allah are having their little group hug, even though he's been telling them verse after verse after verse, even though those guys are doing well, it's only because of me, and the reason you guys are doing bad is because you're not worshipping enough, in future it's going to turn around and I will be the cause of that. They're clearly not taking it on quick enough for his liking, so he spends an entire verse shouting at his good Muslims who he was just praising a minute ago. Don't you morons get it yet? Don't you get it that Allah owns everything? He owns this earth, he owns Israel, he owns you, he owns everything. All the stuff that he's saying is definitely true. He owns the heaven, he owns everyone's bodies and souls and minds. And if you don't understand that he controls everything, you will die just like those evil Jews and Christians. That's what he's saying here. It's another threat. 85. Would Muslims ever question their prophet? You know, like those evil Jews did with Moses. They wouldn't even believe Moses. That's why they're evil. Those dumb, evil Jews questioned Moses, and when they questioned Moses, they became even more perverted and evil than they started out as. So why is he saying this? Let's break it down. Would Muslims ever question their prophet? There's two reasons why he's saying that. The first one, he's saying, actually, even in the past, nobody has ever questioned him or his prophets, even though they have. So he's covering up the fact that people did question him in the past and he had to quell those rebellions himself. And before that, when the Jews were escaping, people were questioning him and they were actually saying to themselves, why aren't we over there doing what they're doing? They're doing brilliantly and they're having a great time and they're happy, and we're not. We're miserable and doing crap. So why aren't we doing that? And Allah had to quell their rebellion. So he's covering that up now by saying, would Muslims ever question their prophet? No, of course they wouldn't, one. And then he's also saying, those guys questioned Moses, so they're evil and dumb and stupid. Two things he's saying here. A, is that nobody ever questions him, and that's definitely true in the words of Allah, if you believe him. And the other thing he's saying is they always question their prophets over there. Those dumb, stupid, evil Jews, they're just constantly questioning their prophet, and they just deserve death. They're self-destructive. Please believe me, they're evil and dumb. We should kill them all. That's what he's saying here. And he's saying when they questioned Moses, they became perverted again. So between the lines, Allah is saying Jews are actually perverted, perverted evil people. While they were slaves, they weren't, because then Allah was responsible for them. So they got better while they were slaves. But then after they got killed and resurrected by Allah and they went on their way and set up Israel, now they're totally evil and perverted once again. So it should be fine for us to kill them, is what he's saying there. Don't feel bad about those guys. They're perverts anyway. Evil. 86. And they're also super jealous of you, O Muslims. Most of them anyway. That's why they want to trick you back into ignorance, like what you had before you started worshipping Allah. You know, everyone's ignorant unless they got Allah. That's just the truth, according to Allah. Don't worry about these stupid, selfish, greedy, stupid pigs, as Allah will bring his wrath down upon them, as he has power over everything and he knows everything, remember? Ignore them and concentrate on your Quran stuff. Get back to your worship now. Stop whinging. Go and worship me now. And we come to our last verse of today. So what he's saying here is these guys, even though they're doing really well and they're rich and happy and they've got a huge powerful kingdom with a big wall around it and they're secure, rich, wealthy, well-fed and happy, and they're sacrificing to their God who's not Allah, even though that's all happening, they're actually super jealous of you Egyptians with your famine and your disease and your plagues and your loss of your firstborn sons and the fact that all your soldiers are dead and that you've got to worship Allah. They're super jealous about that, really. They're just not admitting to it. And that's why they lie. That's why they say they've got this other God and their covenant, and why they trick you and lie and say that they're happy, even though it looks like they're happy and rich. No, it's all just lies. They're just deceiving you because they're evil, stupid Jews and Christians. So don't worry about those greedy, stupid, selfish pigs. Very explicit there. He's saying, no, don't listen to those bloody assholes over there. Don't listen to them. They're lying. They're stupid, greedy, big rat. That's what he's saying. He's like foaming at the mouth while he's doing this. Don't worry about these stupid, selfish, greedy pigs, as Allah will bring his wrath down upon them. Allah's like so mad that they're doing well over there. He's saying, I'm going to kill them later. I'm definitely going to kill every single one of them. He's so mad. He's just like, rah! He can't control himself. And that's what he's communicating to his Muslims. He's saying, you lot are making me so angry now because you keep questioning me and you keep saying true things about how they're doing really well. That's only because of me. You're doing badly because you're not doing this. It's your own fault. So worship me more. We're going to kill them. That's what he's saying. He's like angry. And then the last thing is just ignore them. Concentrate on your Quran worship and do this stuff. Get on with your worship. Stop moaning. Do that and ignore them. Don't listen to them anymore. Get on with your worship. And that's the end of our verse. So we can see now how Allah is doing. He's not doing particularly well in the terms of his mental health, and neither are his poor Muslims. Remember, he's enslaved his Muslims. They're under a curse now too. They're not allowed to question or they're not allowed to do anything apart from what they're explicitly told. He's got them praying and worshipping and trying to find food all day long. They're not allowed to moan about any of the misfortunes that Allah has brought down on him. And they're not even allowed to mention how their once powerful kingdom and all their wealth has dwindled and they're now in a steep decline. Meanwhile, their enemies that Allah said he was going to kill and who wouldn't be rich and happy, they're over there proliferating into a massive kingdom. They've got this King Solomon, they've got his decrees, so they know exactly what they're doing. And Allah is saying, no, don't listen to them. Don't let them tell you anything. Don't listen, they're evil. And he's making sure that the Muslims don't go over there and figure out that they could just go to Israel and live peacefully. They don't have to be at war with the Israelis. But Allah is like, no, don't think that at all or you're dead. So that brings us to the end of our reading. And I feel like there's not a lot more that we need to explain. It's fairly simple what's happening, fairly simple to figure out what's happening here. And I think we all know that. So next time we're going to be going through more of his threats and we're going to be introduced to Allah's the Satan's comment. This is when he really reveals how he feels about the Jews, and he actually starts, instead of calling them the Jews, Allah starts referring to all Jews as the Satans and starts expressing his real genocidal hate for them. So that's what we're going to go into next time. I'll end the video here because it's getting quite long now, so I hope you really enjoyed that and you understood it. We'll pick up where we left off next time. In the meantime, enjoy your day, go and enjoy the sun, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. So that's all for now. If you want to find out what happens to these terribly cursed and enslaved Muslims and hear about more genocidal threats made towards the unbelievers, then catch up with me later in the next one. Until then, enjoy yourself, God bless, and I'll see you next time.